What you want? I ain't got it. What you want?
Can you help me understand something? So you're Charli XCX. Yes, you, right there. You are Charli XCX now. You're a well-respected pop star who's made two of the best pop albums in recent memory. You start gearing up for your next record, dropping singles, dream collabs with talented collab-ers like Rina Sawayama and Caroline Polachek, playing on SNL for the first time in nearly a decade. This should be a slam dunk, yet the reaction to all of that is And it only gets worse when this new record, Crash, comes out. Reception in the discourse void is divisive, far more divisive than any record you've put out in years. What is the deal with this one? Because here's my take. Crash is a left turn for Charli XCX, precisely because it is not a left turn. Ever since 2016, Charli has put out pop music that's been hailed as experimental and boundary pushing. Vroom Vroom, Number One Angel, Pop 2, Charli, How I'm Feeling Now, all seminal records in late 2010s and early 2020s hyperpop. But Crash isn't hyperpop really. It's the kind of disco-infused synthpop that's been in vogue for the past few years. In that way, Crash is Charli XCX's attempt to break back into mainstream pop. I'll remind you that this is something she already did back in 2014, but this time feels like it's on her own terms. And while I'm not going to pretend like this album is on the same dizzying level as Charli or How I'm Feeling Now, it's still a good time. I'm now at a point where I enjoy all of the singles, but I would be lying if I said they clicked for me immediately. Good Ones, New Shapes, Baby, Beg For You, all songs that puzzled me at first, but grew on me over time, especially New Shapes and Baby. There's something insidiously catchy about the way they chant the chorus on New Shapes. But I was hoping the deep cuts would really show the record at its best, and that hope kinda came true. The title track gives major Carly Rae Jepsen Let's Get Lost energy. That is a very high compliment. The vocoder on the pre-chorus of Lightning is great, and songs like Constant Repeat and Yuck do a good job merging pop sounds both conventional and experimental. Even with all this praise, I can't help but feel like Crash hits an emotional ceiling that is lower than Charli's past work. She's been saying that this is her most conceptually consistent era so far, and to some extent I agree, but consistency can only get you so far. If I were to chart out on a line graph the emotional journeys I had with Charli and How I'm Feeling Now, they would look something like but with Crash it was more like and there's no blindingly obvious hits on this record. There is no Gone, there is no anthems, there's not even an Unlock It. I've also seen some say this album is intentionally lesser. Sure, Charli's called this her sellout era, but some are saying this was put out in order to just fulfill her contract with Atlantic, pulling an endless, if you will. But if that's the case, why is she out here defending the album on Twitter? Why is she playing SNL for it? This feels like people making proactive excuses for an album that doesn't really need them. Putting all of that aside though, Crash is another good album by Charli XCX. And if this happens to be a record that pushes her into a new level of mainstream stardom, I can't be mad with that. Check out Constant Repeat. Atlanta duo EarthGang released their second studio album, Ghetto Gods. This was my first time hearing a full-length project of theirs, and I was pretty impressed. Olu and Wowgrade are charismatic frontmen, the guests bring their A-game, and the production manages a great balance of Atlanta trap and unpredictable swings into gospel and funk. Give Black Pearls a listen. The Weather Station followed up their acclaimed 2021 record Ignorance with How Is It That I Should Look at the Stars? I don't know, with your eyes? Now I really liked Ignorance and was especially surprised by its emphasis on groove, but on here, the groove is gone, and it's been replaced almost entirely with piano ballads. I'm not head over heels for it like the last album, but this'll give any big fans of Ignorance or intimate piano pieces in general something to talk about. Which reminds me, give To Talk About a listen. Rex Orang County, the English singer-songwriter, has this new album out, Who Cares? Well, I do. It's the same bedroom jazz pop he's been known for ever since Tyler the Creator's Flower Boy. The biggest new addition this time is the orchestral touches, which I think suit his music and positive lyrical tone very well. This won't change your mind on him if you're not a fan, but it's a worthwhile follow-up to Pony. Check out Open a Window. And on the topic of Pony, indie rock mainstays Band of Horses released their sixth album, Things Are Great. Now, I've never been huge on Band of Horses, nothing to do with quality, I was just corrupted by other similar bands before they could get to me. But this new record is a fine time, with enough moments of pure Midwestern rock bliss to make it worth your while. I most enjoyed Aftermath. Ben Bridwell, you crazy man. How you making all this music with a bunch of horses? Nilüfer Yanya released her second album, Painless, which follows 2019's breakthrough, Miss Universe. That was a record that I didn't click with, though I'd be a dummy if I didn't recognize Nilüfer's captivating voice. But I like this new one a good deal more than the last one. What changed? I don't know, man. It's basically the same down-tempo genre menagerie. Maybe the melodies hooked me sooner, maybe it was the quicker pace across most songs, or maybe I'm just less of a dummy than I was back in 2019. Regardless, give Stabilize a try. The Swedish rock band Ghost dropped their 5th album, Impera. My relationship with Ghost's music is like my relationship with long-term happiness. It's usually absent in my life, but I'm always glad to see it when it comes around. Because Ghost usually delivers when it comes to blistering hard rock with larger-than-life hooks in production, and this new record is no exception. You can get some weird left turns on here too, like listen to the intro on 20s. This is just straight up Mario boss fight music. Give Kaiserian a listen. You know, I get a good amount of comments asking why I don't cover X album each time I do one of these roundups, and sometimes it's just because I don't get to it, I don't have enough time, but other times I do listen to it and I just have no strong feelings towards it whatsoever. Anyway, this new Alex Cameron album, no strong feelings towards it. Nothing objectively wrong, I just don't have anything really worthwhile to say. Check out the opener Best Life, who knows, maybe you'll actually form an opinion about it. Indie rock legends Guided by Voices put out Crystal Nuns Cathedral, their 35th album. Do the same thing 35 times and you'll probably be good at it. It's why I'm so good at breathing. GBV have nothing left to prove to the world of rock, but this new album still managed to surprise me. There's definitely more string arrangements than I expected. The second half veers back into the band's usual lane, but this is still some damn fine alternative rock with occasional moments of sweeping bombast. Check out Redevelop. Belgian musicians Charlotte Adigéry and Bolis Popul teamed up for this new record, Topical Dancer. Some of the most pure, uncut electro dance pop with lyrics that range from socially conscious to socially blunt. The racists and bigots might not like it, but you'll be too busy throwing your ass back in the club to care. And I may not love every song, but this record absolutely knows what it wants to be and wants to say. I really enjoyed. And we've got more dance pop from a Belgian musician. Stromae put out his 3rd album, Multitude. He debuted its lead single by singing it on French TV. I did the same thing once, except instead of a lead single, it was my IBS diagnosis. But unlike my IBS, this album is fun, effortless, and occasionally beautiful. Check out the closer, Bonne Journée. Ooh, we got a new Fearless Flyers EP. You got Corey Vaughan, you got Nate Smith, you got Joe Dart, you got Low Volume Funk, you got Constructive Interference, you got Ellis Island 1945. Check out Reeling in the Years.
La Rosalía.
Latin pop has been having one hell of a rise in the past few years, and one of the artists responsible has been Rosalía. She made her biggest impression in 2018 with the album El Mal Querer. It was from that album that she's been able to collab with the likes of Bad Bunny and J Balvin and rise to the place where she is today. And here's where I've got to betray your trust, Marcus. I've never heard that record. Totally passed me by in 2018, and I've never been inspired to check it out. That makes Motomami a highly anticipated album, not just for everyone, but for me. So I decided to make it up to both Rosalía and 2018 Mike and catch this album as soon as it came out. And Jesus, I'm so glad I did. This thing is wild. This is like the Latin version of Kanye West's Yeezus. And I hate being that guy who compares everything to Yeezus, like, oh wow, this is the Yeezus of household appliances. But what I mean is, it takes so many abrupt turns in production, and yet they almost always lead to someplace new and exciting. The opener, Saoko, demonstrates this beautifully. The second that distorted bass entered, I was hooked. And then it throws in this super random piano jazz breakdown. You know what other opening track also had a random change of pace? Huh? The whiplash only continues from there. Cute! Abruptly jumps from tender piano to a Billie Eilish-esque combo of pummeling bass and low-register vocals. Delirio de Grandeza weaves together a cover of Justo Betancourt's 1968 song of the same name and Soulja Boy samples, and other songs like lead single Chicken Teriyaki and Candy are just pure reggaeton bangers. The Yeezus comparison also extends to the lyrics on here, as Rosalía tackles all matters of love, from the intimate to the lurid. Seriously, some of these lyrics reach Weekend mixtape trilogy levels of explicit, which is funny because he's on here, with a verse in Spanish no less. And get ready for a soundbite for the ages, because I love a gorgeous piano ballad that juggles Rosalía's stunning vocals with gunshot drums that feel like a completely different song is butting in. Motomami is excellent. Check out Tears for Fears have returned after almost 18 years with this new album, The Tipping Point. I usually don't have high expectations for bands who return after such a lengthy time away, but I had to remember I was dealing with the gents who made Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Sowing the Seeds of Love. It's a pretty good record, one that feels like an updated version of those old tunes while still retaining the feared tear touch I most enjoyed long time. She was beloved pop-punk singer Avril Lavigne, he was her latest album Love Sucks. Can I make it any more obvious? Oh, I can? Alright then, this record's honestly not bad. Pop punk has been having a renaissance as of late, and if anyone's in the best position to reclaim its throne with raucous production and catchy hooks, it's Miss Complicated herself. The only thing it's missing is Hello Kitty 10 times in a row. Check out Bite Me. Australian rock group Gang of Youths dropped their third studio album, Angel in Real Time. Now I'm gonna level with you. Going into this, I had confused these guys with Gang of Four, the legendary post-punk outfit. So I put this on, and a few seconds in, I'm like, what? But then after a few songs, I was like, yeah. I really enjoyed this album. Lyrics about death, religion, and the working class life woven in with anthemic rock bombast. If you enjoy Springsteen, fellow Aussies Rolling Blackouts Coastal Fever, or that Sam Fender album from last year, I can't recommend this enough. Start with The Kingdom Is Within You. Buffalo rapper Conway the Machine dropped his second studio project, God Don't Make Mistakes. Engaging production by The Alchemist and others, great delivery by Conway. This is just no-frills hip-hop with some poignant moments about Conway's upbringing and struggles. I recommend Wild Chapters. And while we're on the Griselda Express, fellow Buffalo rapper Benny the Butcher dropped his latest album, Tana Talk 4. This one doesn't dive into the emotional side as much as his cousin Conway did, but this record still has the same bite, if not more. Plus, you can't go wrong with this kind of boom-bap production. Check out 10 More Commandments with ad-libs from Diddy, of all people.
Ladies all the time be asking me.
Mike the Snare, how come you don't talk about Aldous Harding? Her new album, Warm Crisp, dropped this month, and like her breakthrough 2019 record Designer, it merges sparse folk with her wildly dynamic voice. And much like Designer, I don't really click with it. I'm sorry, I can't help being a goddamn idiot. It's sort of like that Sloppy Jane album from late last year. It moves in its own way, I don't love everything about it, but I'm happy it's out here because it makes everything more interesting. Check out Lawn. Ooh, the cover of this new Sasami album, Squeeze, looks like Björk's Homogenic. Perhaps we're gonna get some similar orchestral electropop? Well, I was wrong on that, but Sasami's second album is still a good time. Think Rina Sawayama's debut album if it was more metal than pop, and you've got a good idea for what to expect. I really enjoyed The Greatest. Dan Behar is back under his moniker Destroyer with this new album, Labyrinthitis. His last album, Have We Met, was great, but it had the misfortune of being released shortly before Animal Crossing New Horizons. Plus his 441 on the cover wasn't plugged in, so I haven't revisited it much. But this time, Dan's phenomenal knack for abstract lyricism is matched by a continuation of the new wave sounds he had on Have We Met. In fact, sometimes this thing is a straight up disco album. I can definitely see myself coming back to this one. Give It Takes a Thief a try. Weezer have finally become a Renaissance fair band. Or at least that's what I thought for the first tracks of their latest EP, Spring. But as it goes on, it becomes more of a mix of OK Human's acoustic instrumentation and, well, usual power pop shenanigans. If you're already a Weezer fan, you'll like but probably not love this. I'm still excited for the rest of this season series they've got going though. Check out Opening Night. Blade and Echo 2K released a collaborative album called Crest. The two Drain Gang members have made something that puts the cloud in cloud rap because the beats are airy and the melodies are sweet. And sure, maybe I'll get a stomach ache from all that sugar, but that problem is for future Mike and his nutritionist to handle. Check out White Meadow. Denzel Curry's fifth album, Melt My Eyes, See Your Future, is so good. Denzel's rapping is still as great as ever, but the production on this is constantly surprising. From the hazy jazz of the opener with Robert Glasper to the drum and bass of with Slow Tie, Denzel and everyone on here did a great job, and I really hope you give this a listen. Check out Troubles with a stellar guest spot from T-Pain.
Emo, 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 emo.
Okay. So this guy, Machine Gun Kelly, he used to be a rapper. He made that one big hit Bad Things with Camila Cabello. He got into a beef with Eminem. He did some acting on the side, but right at the end of the 2010s, he started making pop punk. And people didn't like that, except a lot more people did. And now he's back with a new album called Mainstream Sellout, and it's still the same pop punk. I thought I told you not to do that again! So why has this man been allowed to continue corrupting pop punk? Maybe because the music is kind of alright? My Ex's Best Friend is a good song. There's nothing we can do about that. And his 2020 album, Tickets to My Downfall, the record that started this whole mess, is one I consider to be disgustingly, offensively competent. And that happens to be the best way to describe this new album. Competent. MGK will one day pay for his crimes in the glorious kingdom of heaven, but if he's gonna commit sacrilege as a mere mortal, he's at least getting the right people for it. Travis Barker from Blink-182 is executive producer again, and the guests are all people who work in this kind of sound. Willow, Bring Me the Horizon, even the ones that seem goofy on the surface like Lil Wayne and Young Thug, have some kind of precedent. Does that mean I like this album? Not really. I didn't hate anything in the moment, and the production is serviceable, but I often felt that MGK's voice was straining when he sang. Plus, there are a few insane lyrics that I didn't catch until further listens, plus a weirdly dour turn in tone in the second half. For heck's sake, there's a song called Sid and Nancy. But this is where I run into issues. For all that we like to harp on MGK, the music, the thing that he has become known for, is the least interesting aspect of his enterprise, and the criticisms about it are often more about him. I think it all ties into the overall concept of authenticity, something that MGK, now known as a notorious genre hopper, will probably have to battle for the rest of his career. That is, until his critical reappraisal in a decade when he drops the serious singer-songwriter album that gets him 10 Grammys. That authenticity debate isn't limited to his persona though. I often hear complaints that his music is overproduced, as if it was cooked up in a record label office drained of any of pop punk's core emotional values. But A, if you're heated about homegrown musical trends and genres being co-opted by big businesses to be sold to as wide of an audience as possible, just wait until you learn about... And B, are we gonna pretend that the famed albums of 2000s pop punk, albums like Riot and American Idiot, weren't produced and compressed within an inch of their lives, whip out their waveforms and they look like Lego bricks? Of course, the clear difference is in songwriting. Those records had songs like That's What You Get and Holiday. Mainstream Sellout doesn't have anything like that. It doesn't even have a My Ex's Best Friend. My overall point is, I don't think it's worth our time to debate the subjective quality of MGK's music. In the grand scheme of things, he's just a conduit for us to talk back and forth about what quote-unquote real music is. This is not a new phenomenon. We were doing this back in the 2000s when the artist was Nickelback. But I think it's far more interesting to think about why his music is here even after so much backlash. I hate using numbers like this to make a point, and don't take this as me defending the album or MGK, but Tickets to My Downfall was his first record to go platinum. It's been credited by some as the record that kicked off this whole pop-punk revival trend. Call MGK's music trite, derivative, overproduced, terrible, and affront to real rock and roll, but it's apparently working for a whole lot of people. If you want to diss MGK's music based on the man behind it all, go for it. There's plenty of material to back up that stance. But the music itself really doesn't warrant much of a reaction. Check out Drug Dealer if you want, but personally, I would rather use my energy to talk about records that deserve our attention. And on that note, if I had to recommend 3 albums from this month that I think you should listen to, I would go with Rosalia's Motomami, Gang of Youth's Angel in Real Time, and Denzel Curry's Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. And if you have any thoughts on the records I've covered, or if there's a specific one that you want me to check out for next time, let me know in the comments.